Agenda.
My pleasure, Laura.
And joining me now on my panel of politicians is Labor MP Mark Dreyfus in Melbourne and Liberal MP Paul Fletcher. Thanks so much for joining me.
Good afternoon.
Good to be with you, Laura.
First to you, Mark Dreyfus. This is the sharpest rise in tension we have seen on the Gaza Strip in some 4 years. Now, the UN Security Council has called an emergency meeting. We are not an active member of that council, but what can the Australian government, I guess, do from afar at this stage?
I think the Australian government can do what our Foreign Minister Bob Carr is doing. You heard him in the part of the interview that you just played before. He's urging calm on both parties, and Australia can play a constructive role, as we will when we're on the Security Council. It's very important, though, to see the context of this recent escalation of activity, and that is that there have been constant rocket attacks on Israeli territory now for many months. And I'd invite viewers to contemplate what the Australian government would do in circumstances like this if there were rockets landing on Australian territory from a neighbouring territory, killing and wounding Australian citizens. I think you'd find we'd be taking action.
What's your take on this? What could the UN Security Council do?
Well, I'd agree with what Mark says. When you go to Israel, what strikes you is how small the distances are. If you go to cities and towns in Israel, you can look at the Gaza Strip. It might be 5 or 10 kilometres away. You can see the playgrounds where there are giant concrete worms which double as bomb shelters for the children. You can see the bomb shelters which are built into the homes. So this problem of rocket attacks into conventional suburban areas where civilians live is a very serious one. Now, obviously, it is important that other governments are calling for restraint, but we do need to understand the fact that you have rocket attacks being launched into civilian areas of Israel.
Paul Fletcher, Mark Dreyfus, we will have to take a quick break, but we'll be back with the rest of the day's political news. Stay with us.
It's back. Due to popular demand, you can get an amazing 0.5% finance comparison rate at your Holden dealer right now. That's a finance rate you can't ignore. You'll find 0.5% comparison rate on a range of new Holdens like Commodore, Ute, Barina, Cruise SRI, Captiva and Colorado 4x4. And you can get this amazing finance rate with no deposit on terms up to 36 months. Hurry, it's on right now, but only for a limited time. 0.5% comparison rate. Don't let it pass you by. Visit your participating Holden dealer today.
In my job, with so much to do and so little time, I need quick solutions. That's why I use Resolver Weed Killer 24H. Resolver gives visible results in 24 hours. Works as fast as I do, so at last I can get on with everything else I really need to do. So for quicker, more visible results, choose Resolver. Spray it today, see results tomorrow.
We knew we needed to get some life insurance sorted.
But I didn't want just any policy. Choosy helped tick all our boxes.
Choosy is a free comparison service that makes choosing life insurance simple.
The Australian call centre was a nice surprise.
Choosy does the shopping around for you, comparing a range of policies from well-known insurance brands, shrinking hours of research into just a few minutes.
They asked us a few simple questions and then shortlisted the life insurance policies that best match our needs and budget.
Choosy lets you compare, choose and apply for life insurance over the phone and costs no more than going direct.
It's important for me to do my research, and Choosy gave us the information we needed. It was still our decision.
But with Choosy, it wasn't a chore.
By the end of the call, we were covered, with insurance that suited us and our budget.
She is so choosy.
Come on, Australia, it's time you got your life insurance sorted. Call Choosy on 1300 363 234 or visit choosy.com.au.
It's your family's future.
Be choosy.
I promise that whatever happens, I'll look after you.
You promise to be there for the ones you love most in the world, but life doesn't always go as planned. If anything were to happen to you, Insurance Line could help you keep that promise by leaving your family with life insurance. With a life insurance plan in place, your family could receive a tax-free payout from $100,000 right up to $1 million. Our life insurance is flexible, so you can choose the amount of cover that's right for you and your family. And our cover starts from as low as $2.95 a week, so it's affordable to protect your loved ones. And you can apply over the phone in minutes with no medical tests or forms to fill in. You'll also get a full 30-day money-back guarantee. Plus, call now and you'll also receive a free will kit, making it easier to leave your affairs in order. So make sure you keep your promises. Call Insurance Line on 13 13 38 and get life insurance today.
Welcome back to Lunchtime Agenda. On my panel of politicians, Labor MP Mark Dreyfus and Liberal MP Paul Fletcher. Now, Osmin has just wrapped up in Perth. It was one big love-in the end, but there was no love coming from Paul Keating last night. Successive governments, he says, has diluted our global influence. Mark Dreyfus, what do you have to say about this?
Look, I'd respect Paul Keating's experience in this area, but respectfully disagree with the comments that he was expressing last night. I think you have to see that Mr Keating was taking a long view. He was looking back over the Howard years, and I think it's right to say that we would have had a lot of disagreements with the previous American administration. We've had far less disagreements with the Obama administration, but even there, we've got our differences with the Americans, and I think you'll see that continue. I think we've got a level of independence, and the points that he was making about China, I think you need to have a look at what the Osmin communique said, in which we very clearly said we don't see China as a threat. And on Indonesia, I think that Mr Keating needs to pay closer attention to what our blossoming relationship with Indonesia actually is, how well we are and how well we've been cooperating with Indonesia.
Yeah, Paul Fletcher, he didn't reserve his criticism just for the Rudd and Gillard governments. He did suggest that John Howard had blindly followed the US.
Well, look, Paul Keating's always been very generously prepared to spray criticism around a lot of people. I guess the point I'd make is that if you go back to the messages from Paul Keating in 1995, 1996, in the lead-up to the Howard government being elected, he was very keen to try and portray this as some kind of choice between our traditional relationship with the US, our major security partner and a very close ally with whom we have shared democratic values, and countries in Asia. Now, that is a false choice. What the Howard government demonstrated is that you can maintain a strong, vital relationship with the United States while also building and deepening relationships with China, our major trading partner, our most important trading partner, and also Indonesia, an extremely important neighbour. And so this notion that it's a one or the other choice, this is an old line from Mr Keating, but as the Howard government demonstrated, it's not right, and the Abbott government, if elected, will demonstrate again that you can maintain both sets of relationships very vigorously and in a very healthy fashion.
Yeah, well, looking at our relationship with China, we're about to take you to Beijing to show you some pictures of the new leader being anointed there after months of speculation. And this happens only once in 10 years. Mark Dreyfus, we heard Bob Carr say before that he doesn't expect any huge policy shift. But how does the Australian government and Australia approach its relationship with China with this new leadership transition?
As the Foreign Minister said really clearly, we're not expecting the change of leadership once in 10 years that's occurring now in China to mean any great changes in the relationship or changes in policy positions. And indeed, if anything, I think we can look forward to a continuity of positions, particularly in the policy area that I work on, which is climate change. We've had a very, very fruitful relationship over the last 3 or 4 years with the Chinese government. There's a continuation of high-level officials there, and we're looking forward to a deepening of that cooperative relationship with the Chinese government, both in the international climate change talks and in our bilateral relationship, which is seeing increasing technical exchanges and us sending people to China to assist with the development of their emissions trading schemes.
Yeah, Paul Fletcher, Bob Carr did say in the last day, or this morning in fact, that China will be assured of the predictability of the United States and Australia relationship. Do you agree with that?
Well, clearly China is a very, very important relationship for Australia. clearly, as Opposition Foreign Affairs spokesman Julie Bishop has said, the change of leadership in China is of great importance to Australia, just as the presidential elections in the US are of great importance to Australia. And we need to follow both sets of processes very closely, and we need to carefully analyse what they mean for us. But I think the notion of a continuing deep relationship at official and commercial and person-to-person levels is very important, and I think that throughout the Australian community there is an understanding of how important China is to us, and I think you would certainly see a coalition government would have a very strong commitment to maintaining and building a relationship with China.
Just onto some domestic issues today. Again, across the front pages, we've seen stories and allegations about Julia Gillard's time as lawyer at Slater and Gordon 20 years ago. Now one of the key union officials who said that he thought that money went towards Julia Gillard's renovations says he's not quite sure. Paul Fletcher, does this show perhaps some tenuous links here to Julia Gillard? This is something that the Australian newspaper has pursued, but also Julie Bishop in Question Time. Is that something that the coalition should continue?
Well, the Australian newspaper and other media outlets have pursued it. The coalition has also pursued it, and as you've rightly said, Julie Bishop has asked questions about it in Question Time. That's legitimately and properly what Question Time ought to be used for, and we'll continue to ask questions, and I think these are issues of legitimate public importance.
Mark Dreyfus, your response to that?
Well, and I'd say that we've just had Paul Fletcher making it clear that he's going to continue to engage in what Mr Abbott described on Monday as nasty personal commentary. And I'd be calling on Mr Abbott, I call on Paul Fletcher, I call on Julie Bishop to end this smear campaign, end the muckraking that we're seeing. It's a disgraceful attempt to divert attention from anything other than policy. This is a week when the Prime Minister has met with the Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and the Defence Secretary Panetta in Perth for OSMIN. It's a week when the Prime Minister has announced a very, very important Royal Commission into child sexual abuse in Australia. It's the week after we've launched the Australia in the Asian Century white paper.
Mark Dreyfus,
there's real things happening here.
We only have 2 minutes left on the program. I do want to ask you both about this issue of GST. This is something that has been brought up time and time again over the last few months, this time by Rob Oakeshott and Tony Windsor. Mark Dreyfus, it has been hosed down very quickly. Is this just too politically difficult? Is that the only reason we're not going down this path?
I'll simply say we've ruled out an increase in the GST. That's the position.
Is it just too politically difficult, though? Is there practical reasons, broadening the base or lifting the rate?
We don't think that now is the right time to be increasing the GST. We've ruled out an increase in the GST. I don't think I can be clearer than that. And it's for others to comment as you're seeking to do.
Paul Fletcher, this is something that Barry O'Farrell has raised as a possibility, even just having the discussion. Why shouldn't we have the discussion about broadening the base of the GST at least?
Well, look, it's certainly a refreshing spectacle to see a Labor politician resisting a tax increase. Their natural inclination is to go for every tax increase they can find. Look, the key point is this. Under the Rudd-Gillard government, spending has exploded. When the Howard government left office, government spending was in the order of $250 billion a year. It's now $360 billion a year. There's been an explosion in government spending, and what we need to do is get spending under control and show some discipline on that side of the financial statement rather than talking about increasing taxes.
And Paul Fletcher and Mark Dreyfus, that is where we are going to have to leave the panel for today. Thanks so much for joining us. And now we'll take